Howdy fellow skeptics, Lester the Skeptic Tank here. I know we covered vendor-sided transactions and what you're seeing here is a vendor bill. Let's look at the other side of it. Now again, I'll do some digging if we can do some better inventory tracking, at least here in GNU Cash. I will do what I can to set up my VirtualBox so we can show how much flexibility QuickBooks still has in advantage over other solutions out there, at least when it comes to ease of use and how detailed you can track inventory if you are intending to stock and resell items, tracking their asset value and what you might call performance. If you are on the other hand looking to simply drop ship, that's a different story. I think based on my limited use of GNU Cash at this point, you can probably do something around that. But for someone like myself, who I don't know if I'm a brand or, Chris Carter talks about Chris Carter Inc. I don't know how long ago that was, but I do remember that to this day. Think of yourself as someone who provides a good or a service. In most cases, a service. And in most cases, if you work a day job like I do, your customer is your employer. So let's go here, go to customer overview. You're going to see an empty customer list. And let's make a customer then. And just for consistency and reference, I'm going to name this customer day job. Now, if you're a business, that's a different story. You go on to make sure you reconcile what happens in your day-to-day business life with what you're going to communicate through your bookkeeping software or financial software. So make sure the information filled out in the software matches as close as possible, if not 100%, to what you might have in administrative paperwork if you have that. So again, consult and defer. So anyway, I've got my day job, and like we said, all right, what am I gonna do? Oh yes, side gig, side hustle, whatever you want to term it. So let's do it that way. I tend to like side gig. That's just me. And, well, if that's the case, again, in my last video, I talked about how specifically you want to track things, right? So we talked about the generic account levels. Okay, again, if you're a business, consult and defer with your, I'm going to say it, accounting, bookkeeping professional. But for me, if I want to track the performance or be able to draw a distinction, and especially if you're going to refer to your accounts, and that will be your starting point, and you want to get a good bird's eye view of the figures going where, it doesn't hurt to have a layer or a couple of layers of specificity. And again, when it comes to account coding, this is just based on my experience with QuickBooks, the defaults they provide in terms of account numbers when you turn those on. Again, many businesses vary. Some use numbers, some don't. So again, defer and consult with your, as I'm going to say it again, a bookkeeping or accounting professional. But based on the defaults QuickBooks provides, I'm going to roll with the 4000 series. And the incrementation, again, that's going to be up to whoever you defer to and consult. Because I've seen various levels of incrementation, every 5 digits, every 10. Sometimes they drive me up the wall, especially if QuickBooks detects, or Excel detects duplicate account numbers, and you want to respect their numbering scheme. So there's that. So day job income is there, and I'm going to make another account. Side gig. There it is. This will be important when it comes to providing some sort of valuation in terms of your side gig. So I'm going to go with customers, and I'm going to do new invoice. And in terms of terms, you can go back to, you can hit cancel, and depending on how often you get paid, it's so that you can anticipate when you expect to get paid. So for example, if I have a side gig where I get paid weekly, so I am going to use that. And then, of course, with most jobs, unless you work in a very specific industry, I know as I worked in the school district a long time ago, I would get paid by the month. I'm still not sure what I prefer. Do I like seeing that lump sum, or do I like more consistent collection of chunks? Drop a comment and let me know what you think. Net 7. Of course, got to match the term description with the numeration or calculation. And then I'm going to do one for net 14. And again, if you are ending up using QuickBooks, your defaults will be more extensive. You're not going to be so barren when you start your company file. That is one of the major ups of QuickBooks. So I'm going to go here, create an invoice. And of course, this is not something that I would recommend you handing your employer. They kind of know. This is just something for your own record keeping. Now, if you're a business, on the other hand, you have bona fide customers, sure, by all means, of course, record the invoice, but also provide the invoice to remind them, hey, this is what we're invoicing you for. So, invoice 01. And since I'm doing it for day job, I'm going to use the net 14. And if you want to be very descriptive, you can do it like a date range for a 2-week pay period. And most jobs, like I said, there are those jobs paying monthly. Most jobs I've encountered pay every 2 weeks. So let's just roll with that. If that's the case, great. Now, depending on the nature of your payment or your wages or your compensation package, you can either do Hours are going to be the most obvious if you're an hourly employee. If you are salaried, you would do something like project. Project would be more apt because it's like what you might refer to as flat rate or fixed rate billing. Income account and day job. There it is. And just because every 2 weeks I just go with the quantity and the sum that you would get, and depending on how you want to track it, I haven't really gone to the level of detail and specificity where I would kind of keep track of my own deductions. So far I've been just tracking the amount of my take home and not my gross minus all the deductions. Now at the same time, I would have to think about what the benefit would be for me to track all those deductions, because of course that is it's progression based. So if I end up making more, naturally I'm expecting my deductions to go a little bit higher. And I guess depending on the type of deductions, like say my medical benefits, I can probably reassess. Now, again, that would be based on how much more detailed I'm going to track, say, my medical billing. So, on a personal note, I did opt for the most, I think, if my recollection serves correctly. I went for the most expensive medical plan, and given what I've been enduring, kind of good that I've done so. Now, what that will do for my quote-unquote bottom line, it all comes down to how my health is improving, and whether that will merit a reduction in the cost of my, or I would say, I hate to say reduction in the level of care, but you know what I mean. Will it merit my reduction in level of benefits, or looking at the paperwork, will I want to reduce what's taken out of my paycheck, for example? Okay, maybe that would be something worth considering, and I would have to chart that a little bit differently in my own books, for example. So that's something that you're going to have to come to a decision on, and so forth. So say I'm a salaried employee, and I've worked various jobs, and this is not what I make, but okay, every 2 weeks I'm going to take home, let's see, let's do a rough estimate. Okay, that's what I'm going to take home, and that's what I expect to take home. And I'm going to post that against AHA. That's the other thing too. When you make an invoice, so you're holding someone liable to provide you money and income for services rendered. So in the case of my day job, now that account will be an accounts receivable. Okay? And what I can do from the account level is I can create an account dealing with that. So what do I want to do? Let's make it accounts receivable. Let's do it. Not from here, but let's do it from here. There we go. That's what I need. I need an accounts receivable. And I'm trying to think of what the typical defaults, and again, every business I've encountered and reports I've encountered, their numbering scheme, I just go with what I've been used to with defaults in QuickBooks, so I think it's going to be a 1300 series. So I'm going to start with that. What I can then do is create an account from here. And then I can say AR day job. And then again, incrementation, that's going to be up to you. And if you are a business, again, going to go back to just consult and defer, or defer and consult. 1305. Right. There it is. And I would do, and I likely will do that in this demo file. I'll probably do one for side hustle or side gig. Right. Now I can finally post this. Yep, like that. And do it that way. Okay. Now it's going to hit the account as I demonstrated in my previous video. Okay. So you're just drawing something in anticipation. So if I go back to reports, I go to business, and I can now put in a customer report, customer summary. Okay. Yeah. 100. Where did I get that? Oh, that's... Oh, I think I know why. From the invoice? Okay. Interesting. And depending on your chosen solution that you end up choosing, and I know I'm using GnuCash as my template, but you're kind of walking with me as I go in terms of trying to grow in my experience and knowledge of what makes things tick in the software. As you might have seen my lengthy working through a issue I was having with reports not rendering correctly, and then finally getting the help document loaded. So there's that. All right. Well, again, fellow skeptics, hope that made some sense. Hope I gave you some ideas to think about as you start thinking about, maybe just still thinking about tracking your finances as you go along in a more robust, and once you get a handle, I think it's going to end up being more manageable about what you have your eyes on, what you're anticipating to be debited from your account, and also accounting for what will be in your bank account for, especially if you work a day job, and especially when you start working a side gig, side hustle, however you want to describe it, because I know based on the conversations I've had with a lot of Lyft and Uber drivers, a lot of them, there's a good chunk doing it full time. There's also another chunk where it's supplemental. Everyone's life is different and they've got things to handle, and finances is one of those things where I got to make those ends meet, and there are many things you can do. There are many decisions to make, and you can only make as right a decision as you can, but you can't do that if you don't have enough information, intelligible information, so that you can at least make the most informed and the most correctly informed decision within your ability and within your situational context that you might find yourself in. So Hopefully, you're not going to feel too daunted about at least thinking about starting using something like GNU Cash, or if you opt for QuickBooks, for example. Hopefully, the principles I provide will jog your thinking over time. So, like always, until next video, fellow skeptics, peace out, and I'll catch you all on the other side.